When the Latina Style Business Series was launched, there were only two panels. One that had to do with panels with business structure, that was the SBA, the IRS, and so on. And the other one was the lessons learned panel. And this lessons learned panel is the one that I have the greatest affection for, because this is Latinas sharing their experiences with other Latinas. And something that we Latinos in small businesses face all the time is that, especially when you're getting started, or when you are at different stages of your business and you're facing new challenges, you're always facing things that you kind of hope that you're right. If you don't have a business advisor that is really in your life all the time, mistakes can come in. And ustedes saben, cuando somos business entrepreneurs, cada centavo cuesta un millón. So, any little mistake that you might make is going to cost you so much. So this panel is created with the hope that each one of the presenters will give you some insights. And basically for me, this panel is green light, red light. Green light, this is the time to really, take a chance. This is the time that you can move forward at full speed. Red light, don't do this, because if you do this, this is what might happen. And what may happen may be something that you had no idea whatsoever that could be a consequence. And believe me, as an entrepreneur, like in everything else in life, actions have consequences. For entrepreneur, consequences mean money. Money means that it can put you out of business. And for this panel, I am delighted to have a moderator that is going to guide us through the panel with our panelists, with Janice Garcia, Kirin Celi Argueta, y Sila Alegret Bartel. We have Veronica Cool, because like her name says, Veronica is very, very cool, and she knows her stuff. So Veronica, you want to take it over?
Sí. Gracias, Robert. Gracias. Thank you guys for having us. This reminds me of the fantastic time we had in 2019 before COVID hit. You guys were in Baltimore. I was honored, along with Elda Devari, to win the Entrepreneur of the Year. And this particular session is obviously, like Robert said, very close to my heart, because we are masters of resourcefulness. Not sure if it's a Latina thing, a woman thing, a mom thing, an entrepreneurial thing, but I know that we pivot unconsciously. If there is a wall, we go above it, underneath it. So for me to be here with this very esteemed panel is a gift. Myself, as a consultant of 7 years, has a lot of tough lessons. And I appreciated Valeria's comments about our value. And charging what you're worth, that's a lesson in itself, how you do it. So every moment, every transaction, every step we take as entrepreneurs is what gets us to the next step. And one stat, and I believe Janice is going to help me with this in a little bit, is that the numbers are woefully low for Latinas. It's about 1% to 2% of Latina entrepreneurs become $1 million revenue producers in their businesses. Did you hear me? Solamente 1% to 2% of Latina entrepreneurs break the $1 million revenue mark. Now, if you know anything about money, the top line doesn't really matter. It's that bottom line. So even if you're breaking $1 million, if you're not taking home money to go on vacation, to treat your kids, to treat yourself and go to the spa, buy your house, do what you need to do, then we're not successful. So this panel is about learning. This is about the entrepreneurs that we are. We have some rock stars right here. And we want to talk about the pitfalls, the challenges, even the simplest little thing, like Robert mentioned, can derail you, can completely bankrupt you. We've heard the stats over and over that most businesses don't last past 2 years, past 4 years, past 5 years, let alone break the revenue and the profitability mark. So what we're here for is to learn from these beautiful, smart, sharp entrepreneurs so that you at home, as you're watching, don't make these mistakes. One of the things I'll stress is that Valeria had beautiful, beautiful commentary about this. We need to be fearless. No tenemos que tirar del puente. We need to be fearless, trusting in our abilities to pivot, to survive, to thrive, and realize that if we stumble because we're fearless, go ahead and get up and pivot. Go ahead and get up and pivot. Next day, we do it differently. It's not a failure, it's a lesson learned. So I'm going to invite to join me on the panel. We're going to go ahead and start with Janice. Janice, I'd love for you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Veronica. My name is Janice Garcia Keating, and I am the owner of Wilco Group, LLC, which is headquartered in the Washington, D.C. area, specifically Alexandria, Virginia. And we focus on information technology consulting and business consulting, and work primarily with the federal government.
Awesome. Very nice to have you. I'd like to invite my friend here from Maryland as well, Celia Argueta. Saluda, por favor.
Thank you, Veronica, and thank you so much to all the participants. My name is Celia Argueta, and I'm the owner of BNG Professional Consulting Services. We specialize in providing bilingual business advisory services, program development, and technical assistance, and community outreach. We work with a number of chambers, small business development centers, and nonprofits. On a personal level, I was born in El Salvador, so if any Central Americans are on the line, welcome. I immigrated to the United States in 1980, and that was the best decision my parents could have made for our family. So I'm a proud mother of two amazing teenage boys. They're bicultural and bilingual, and they're our future. So I'm really humble and honored to be part of this amazing event.
Hola, Celia. I didn't know we were doing the whole, country thing. So hold up, Dominican in the house.
Yes.
All right. That brings me to my fellow Caribbean sister, Sila Alegret Bartel. Saluda, Sila.
Okay, buenos dias, everybody. My name is Sila Alegret Bartel. I'm originally from Cuba. And after working many years in Washington, D.C., I decided to do something different. And I decided to open ICTM, open my own business. What was I thinking? It was more work, really, than the previous job. ICTM, we provide translations and interpretation services toward Western Maryland, but not just in Maryland, but along the I-81 corridor from Harrisburg to Winchester. We provide 16 different languages, services in 16 different languages. We work closely with the school systems and also with early intervention with counties along the I-81 corridor. So that's what we do. And I enjoy what I do, every minute of it.
I love it, Sila. I love the fact that you're on round 2-0, 3-0, 4-0. It just proves again how we pivot. But I like to invite all of you, and we'll go ahead and start with you, Sila, make it easy. How did you get started in this particular journey? Because we know we have a lot of Latinas that are working a job that they may not be happy about. We have a lot of emerging leaders that don't know they can be something else. And we know what's been said. If you don't see it, you can't be it. So I know many folks are looking at us and going, "Oh yeah, I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know that was a thing." So I'd like for you to briefly share, how did you arrive at this version of you, this business venture you're doing, so that we can kind of teach the ones coming after us that this is an opportunity? You can go ahead, Sila.
Okay, thank you. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I got tired of commuting to Washington, D.C., a 3-hour round trip, and I said, I'm done. I knew, and my husband said to me, "And what are you going to do?" Knowing me, he knew I had to do something. So I said, I don't know yet, but I will know when I see it. I was very involved with the Latino community in Frederick, Maryland. I saw the need for the services. I opened ICTM in Frederick, just myself doing translations and interpretations in Spanish. I moved the company to Hagerstown, Maryland. I changed it from home to an incubator to give ICTM a more professional image. The need for other services, I saw it and I said, this is a good business opportunity. So I expanded the business. It was not on my business plan, but the opportunity presented itself and I took it. And in this area, there were not too many companies providing the services. So it was a golden opportunity and a door that opened that I was not expecting, but I opened it more and got in. So I began in Washington County, moved to Franklin County, Pennsylvania, and now we work with Cumberland, Perry, Franklin, Fulton counties in Pennsylvania, Washington County, Maryland, and down into West Virginia, Berkeley counties, and Franklin County,
So
Winchester.
what you're saying, Sila, is that you saw an opportunity and you jammed your way through it. So it's proof again that we know how to pivot. Sally, I love to hear your journey as well. I know that you started in certifications and you saw the need to help Latinos one-on-one. And from there, you forged this company. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that journey, por favor.
Sure. So thanks again. So a few years out of college, I went to work for a federal 8A Latina-led consulting firm. One of the very few ones in the DC region. I was hired as a project manager, and that really exposed me to a whole new world of federal contracting. So that got me thinking, right? So I'm working on managing projects, working on winning proposals, because most of them we won. And eventually I was given an opportunity to lead large focus, Latino focus initiatives by federal agencies such as the NIH. And every time I would go into some of these meetings and events, I would see hardly any Latinos. And I'm like, why are we not present? Why aren't enough more Latinas getting these government contracts? So that's really where the idea came, where that seed was. And one day I thought, well, you know, one day I want to have my own consulting firm and help other Latinos, Latinas to get into federal contracting. So that's really how it all started with BNG. So, you know, my background, obviously in government consulting, led me to start working one-on-one with business entrepreneurs. And now I've expanded to working as business consultant with other agencies and other organizations that are supporting small businesses. So in essence, you know, it all kind of came back together because I really wanted to work in the community. I love politics. I love public policy. And then I'm finding myself back into doing a lot of the advocacy work as well. So that's really how it all started. So from government certifications, you know, I've expanded to doing a lot more TA and also working with organizations who want to reach out to the Hispanic community to see how they can become more involved at the federal level and also at the state and local level. So.
That's fantastic. You know, it's funny, when I started my consulting business, I have been in banking, commercial lending. So talk about being la única, the only one, for 25 years, right? So this loud Latina with the hair and the red lipstick and the curl, you know, and in a predominantly male dominated world, everyone asked me the same question 12 times a year. Oye, what's a good event to find Hispanics? How do I hire Hispanics? And after answering the same questions over and over, it's like I had the epiphany of, this is a business. Americans, mainstream, do not know how to connect to Latinos. So very similar to what you two have shared is that glaring opportunity. So it led me to start my own consulting company. But Janice, I love to hear how you ended up in what's not a Latina world, technology. So cuéntanos un poco.
Well, I think I'll start off by saying that, you know, I am not first generation, but when I listen to all of you, I hear, you know, my mother and I hear my grandparents who are Peruvian. And while I did not have to always have the divide between language, I definitely felt some of the cultural scripts that Valeria and you know, some of them, I actually, when she said them, I'm like, oh, that's not just me. But going back to the business part of it, you know, I think that I felt like I was given so much by my family, you know, in terms of like, you know, there's the American dream being a relay race, not a marathon, not a sprint. You know, I felt like I, you know, as the first person in my family to go to college, you know, just needed to like strive. And so I put so much pressure on myself, which we have learned in previous sessions leads to burnout and other things. But, you know, I had to go on that self-discovery like the rest of us. But long story short, I arrived in Washington, D.C. over 20 years ago and took a job just like everybody else. And so where I'm going with this is it was a little bit accidental. You know, I'm working in my job. I see after, you know, 5 or 6 years of that, and actually a little longer even, I didn't start my own business until I was over 10 years in, but I started to feel like I did have some confidence and that maybe I could do this. And so and here's the other thing. So I didn't plan on it, but then the opportunity, and I'm hearing other people say that, I had one person come to me, and I come from a very strong military background as well, who happened to be a military veteran, and he worked for IBM. And he said, Janice, you have a lot of talent, and I think that you can go out on your own. And if you decided to do that, I want to be your mentor and support you in that. And so I was, and I'll end it with this, I was 6 months pregnant with my second child at the time. And my other child, I have 2 sons, was a toddler. And I saw the timing and I was like, I don't know that anybody's ever going to make this offer to me again. So I took it.
Oh, yeah, so that just talks about fearlessness, you know. So what that you're going to have a kid and you have a toddler at home, go ahead and bring in a new challenge, oíste, métete. But it talks about this fearlessness that we have. But I want to kind of focus a little bit on something you mentioned that is key: confidence. So I have this innate ability to know I will never fail. People say it's cocky. My 19-year-old daughter reminds me that, Mom, you're so arrogant. I see it as, me voy a levantar si me caigo. If I fall, I'll just pick myself back up. So how will I ever fail? It's always a pivoting. So it's that confidence that we have, that you receive support from this mentor during that challenging time. You know, you're pregnant, not challenging, but just a lot of transition. But Janice, answer the question around inspiration and the question around motivation, confidence. What supported you during these times? I heard confidence from this mentor, but what inspired you to continue and take that leap?
So, you know, I think lots of people along the way, you know, it's the daily interactions. It's your, you know, it's your best friends. It's the people, but also, you know, there are other narratives that I heard during this, you know, like I do tend to take my direction from God, you know, and that actually, you know, my mother still sends me devotionals in the mail. You know, and so I feel that even if I don't always have confidence in myself, I have a larger confidence that God is directing my life, and perhaps even things that I want that I don't get, God is redirecting me.
No, I love that. I love that. I know between faith and serendipity, I have been given many opportunities, and the question becomes, do you know where it fits? Do you have the infrastructure in place to allow them to play out and be successful? So Sila, you've had a couple of different reiterations of yourself. I love to hear what kind of mentorship, what kind of support you received. And again, thinking about the people that are watching us, especially the up and coming Latina entrepreneurs, so they can understand that help comes from many different places. So what inspired you, Sila? What guided you? Where did you get some mentorship from? And that's for Sila. Are you able to hear us? You're on mute, Sila.
My apologies.
No, te apure, dale.
The common phrase. The common phrase. Okay, my apology. my guidance came from my father. He always is, not only just myself, but my sisters. He was ahead of his time. He said, if you want something in life, you can achieve it, but you have to work for it. Don't expect to be given to you. And that has guided me all my life. And professionally, at the beginning, I did have a kind of, I can call it a fear. First time, and my first job here in US was working for a bank. But when I went to apply for a job, and the man told me my accent was thicker back then, and he said, with your accent, the only job you're going to find is being a cleaning lady. Swear. I did not allow that comment to deter me from being, you know, from deterring from my goal. And I got up, thank him for his time, and left. I continued applying for jobs, and that's what I say. My first job was at a bank that didn't look at my accent, but my qualifications.
Right.
And one of my mentors was my supervisor, my first supervisor. Some of you might be familiar with the Kiplinger Washington publications.
So,
Okay, my first supervisor was my mentor. I was always saying, but I have an accent. And she said, so what? That's how she said, so what? She was open-minded, you know, and that's how I began at Kiplinger. She said, next week you're going to start answering the phones. I said, oh my God, my accent. She says, I told you, so what? You speak the language well, you can communicate, the accent is not an impediment. You need to get over that. That's how she said it to me. And she was my mentor. And from then on, she really said, you know, set me in a way that I didn't let that interfere, like I said earlier, with my goals.
You know, what you're describing is a lot of what Valeria said. We have a lot of built-in biases and barriers that prevent us from being successful. I love pushing back on people that complain or challenge my accents or your accents. And I simply, you know, a little snarkily will say, oh, so you speak how many languages? And then, of course, they only speak one. So we do have an advantage, and regardless of the accent, we do process in multiple levels. So that's quite the inspiration, having the outside support, but you pushing forth. But I want to pivot a little bit to talk about structure, because we often expose ourselves to a lot of risk. We are fearless, but one of the challenges that we tend to have is we don't know how to navigate processes, and we put ourselves in danger. We make mistakes. You know, we don't set up the company properly. We don't have the right insurance. We don't have the right structure. We get sued. Y se van todo lo cuarto, and then we're stuck. So briefly, I want to hear from Celi, especially that you're working with so many businesses. Talk to us a little bit about your individual business structure, and maybe you can give us 2 or 3 tips for up and coming business owners to be mindful of, so they don't open themselves up to a risk, to a lawsuit, to losing the little bit of money they're starting to earn. So Celi, talk to us a little bit about structure.
Sure. So I decided to be a limited liability company because it fits well with my consulting. So basically, I'm the sole owner, and I knew I didn't want to have any other partners or any other, associates. So, and a lot of the work that we do, it's specific on projects. So I have different consultants working for me. So my structure is pretty simple, right? So you organize it, you do your articles of organization. I do have an operating agreement because even though I'm a sole member, I like to have it in writing, like what I contributed to the business and, when it gets started and the reason why, because this will always help you in the long run for your certifications, right? So making sure that you write everything down. So one particular advice that I would say to business owners is definitely sit down with a business advisor that understands the different proper structure for your business. because it will depend on your vision for the business, right? If you want to have multiple owners, if you eventually want to go and sell your company. So all those different questions you can really, right now with the SBA and all the different resources, the SBDC, the Women Business Center, and people who are just out there, and that's what they do. So one advice is that you may be very good at what you do, but you're not an accountant, you're not a lawyer, you're not an insurance broker. And so you need to look for those people who do that every single day. So that's
a sign, Oye, that's a sign of intelligence.
Yes.
Knowing when you don't know enough. And
Exactly.
there are experts around you. So building a team of advisors that are experts, validated experts, not just because they're Spanish speaking, not just because they're
Right.
Latinos, but vetted experts that have your business success in mind. So yes, they're free resources, and Sally rattled them off, pero también you got to be mindful that some of those resources do not have the capacity to take you from A to C. So you do have to pay for expertise. You get what you pay for.
That's
So I don't
right.
mean to interrupt you, Sally. Dale.
So that was my second, that was the second comment that was going to make, that some of these resources will take you to a certain part in your business, but you do have to seek counsel. You do have to seek those professionals, and you have to set aside some money. When you start a business, you need to set aside some money for this, for the business registration, for the, making sure you have the right proper counsel. That's an investment for your business. That will go a long way, so you're not dealing with problems later down the road. So a lot of times I tell my clients, you may go out a couple of days a week with your, with your family. Save that money and put it into your business. If you really think about it, there's a lot of things that business owners do, and they waste a lot of money, and they don't invest it in the right things, like, getting the proper counseling. So I think that making sure that you have the proper advisors, making sure that you put aside money, because you do have to invest in your business. You get what you put in. So that will be my...
It's the absolute cost of doing business. One of the things that I do when I bid anything out, I actually put down my costs. So at the very minimum, I know how much it costs me to do the job. So if we're brought in to do a community outreach project for the elections, for the Department of Health, we're the bridge between the American mainstream and the Latinos. So every facet, if I bring in Sally's company and she charges me $1,000, if I bring in Sila to do training and that's $2,500, I do the math and I go, okay, I'm spending $3,500 on my partners to execute. Veronica wants to make $500. We're going to have the translators at $50. It's going to cost me $100 for this. I add all of that before I bid it so that I know what it costs me to do business. So to Sally's point, you need to know what it costs you. And this is where the experts can help you build these templates and ensure your contracts are reviewed, so you're not, again, caught in the middle. But I want to transition to Janice to expand as well on the structure, because you're a little bit different, Janice. You offer different services. So briefly talk to us a little bit about how you structured your company and your business processes. So again, people watching can learn from you.
Oh yeah, I think I'm just gonna go right into my mistakes. So, like a lot of people, when I started my business, I was working very much so in the business. It doesn't matter what you do, whether you are making, widgets, or whether you were selling services. A lot of the times when you first start out, you're busy doing the work and technical aspects of your business, which means that you might neglect other things that Sealy referenced. And one of the things that I did at first was I talked with an accountant and I set myself up as a sole proprietorship, given her advice, which was not bad at first, but as Sealy mentioned, you may need to adapt and change things as you grow. So, fast forward 5 years, I have some employees. I really don't need to, my company doesn't need to be a sole proprietorship anymore, even though I was always an LLC. salary. You know, what I really wanted to be was taxed as an S corporation, which would save me money. You know, and I won't bore everybody with the details of that, but I actually ended up having to leave my accountant over it because, you know, she was like, no, you know, I don't think she wanted to do the extra tax return. I don't know. So you have to, you know, not only choose your structure, but you might have to change your structure at some point. In addition to that, I would advise, you know, this seems obvious, but I in the beginning made this mistake. I was busy. Keep your business banking separate from your personal banking. And you know,
Janice, excuse me 1 second, Janice. Go ahead and increase your volume. It's hard to hear you. There's valuable information, but you're a little low coming in.
okay.
So-
I'm trying to increase my volume. Sorry.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Because it's very important to, while you're playing with that, what you said was key. Not only having the structure, but being able to change. And if you're not getting the support you need from these partners, being able to leave that partner. As a business owner, I don't have to know everything, but I do have to know enough to protect myself. So if it doesn't feel right, and Janice had an inkling, I have an undergrad and a master's in finance, and I'm still paying for services for a financial advisor and an accountant, and I go head to head because it's my money, it's my future. So unless I like it and understand it, I'm not leaving them alone. Janice, go ahead. Let's see if we can hear you better.
Yeah, can you hear me better now?
It's the same. So something's off with your system. Go ahead and maybe you can do a little yelling on your end.
Okay, I'll just talk louder. I'm sorry. So I can't emphasize enough to keep your business finances. I know that that's not structure necessarily, but separate from your personal finances. And it's really easy, especially early on in a business, to use your personal credit card accidentally for something. And, you know, you think that it doesn't matter, but as you're doing financial statements years later for a business loan or something like that, I just wanted to say that, you know, I actually did make that mistake. And, you know, some people would never admit to that, but I'm going to admit to it because I don't want other people to make that mistake. And, you know, I overcame it, but avoid it.
No, that's a really good advice. Having healthy relationships and strong credit and clean financial reporting is instrumental. So if you don't hear that over and over and over, it's having your house in order. The bank will not lend you money, and that's the cheapest money to borrow unless your financial house is in order. And I got to tell you, having $250,000 of unsecured credit on my name alone for the business, that lets me go out and get more business. So kind of think about that. But we came through a 1.5 years of dramatic change, COVID. I mean, I know all of us rolled out of bed in 2020, January, February, March, not thinking anything about this year being different. And it was different. And if you didn't pivot, you failed. And I was taking notes during the prior sessions. We heard that 25 to 33% of businesses close their doors temporarily or permanently. And we're not going to know the damage for years to come. Many of us lost income, employees, money, contracts, projects, and a lot of us are hurting. Some of us figured it out, but we're hurting. I'd love to hear Sila talk to us a little bit about how you leverage the COVID opportunity, how it impacted you, so that we can learn.
Honestly, it did not impact the company financially.
Okay.
On the contrary, the reason being, as I mentioned earlier, we work with early intervention with several counties. Anyone who is familiar with early intervention is key to continue to provide the sessions, whether is the therapy is occupational, speech, whichever. Otherwise, the child or the children get behind, and the consequences are pretty bad. So we immediately, in contact with our clients, we jump into the teletherapy. And we began, I have a team of interpreters. They are great. And that's part of the ICTM success, my
But it
interpreters.
was technology and having a team that moved to the new world order. So I heard you, the very
Exactly.
first sentence you said was our revenue wasn't impacted because you moved quickly to telehealth.
Correct,
Very,
correct.
very smart. You know
So-
what? Termina, por favor. Go ahead.
So that's how financially it didn't affect ICTM. As a matter of fact, we even got 3 new clients during that situation. So again, it was key that my interpreters jumped in to work, to allow us to work with the clients and provide them what they needed. We could not afford to be any more than 2 weeks for those children to receive the therapies. It was challenging
I love
because
that.
the technological part with ICTM, but technological part with the parents. Sometimes they only had the phone to be able to communicate. These are children. The children grabbed the phone, threw the phone. The parents had 2 or 3 kids. So it made it very challenging, but I can say it was successful.
I mean, I gotta tell you that the digital divide is large. It's very, very wide in
Huge.
unacculturated Latinos. But you know, that leads us to something you mentioned a little bit, and I'd like to ask Celi. Talk to us, Celi, a little bit about how you communicated with your clients during these challenging times. How did you keep them engaged? How did you keep them with you so you could keep earning a living, Celi?
Actually, Zoom became my best friend. I moved everything online. I ended up doing a lot of webinars, videos. I partnered with other organizations. And so it was interesting because I had not reached a larger market like Virginia. I just expanded into Virginia because folks kept calling me now. Oh, I saw your video, or I saw your presentation. So, interesting enough, it's been great for me because I was able to communicate to a larger audience and I love teaching. So it gave me a platform to really teach, not just locally, but now anybody can go to YouTube and pull up a video and they'll call me up. So yeah, it's Zoom. And I, on purpose, have not changed the platform because Latinos just embrace Zoom so much that I'm sticking to it.
Smart.
So yeah.
Go with the flow, go with the flow.
Yeah.
And it's repetition, 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 repetition. I'll quickly add that remaining on Facebook. We know many Latinos, over 86% of them are actively using social platforms like that for resources. So if you're selling your widgets, selling your service, trying to reach us, that's where we are, as well as, I mean, we know this is being streamed onto Facebook, so keep that in mind. But I'd like to quickly ask Janice, while we've been talking a lot about resources, I want to hear what the SBA, how it has helped you in your business before we start wrapping up. So Janice, give us some insight on how the SBA helped you stay afloat during these challenging times.
Well, hopefully you guys can hear me better now. I've been doing
Yes.
some audio adjustments. Yay.
Dale, dale, dale.
Yeah, I just needed some time. So with the type of work that Wilco Group does, we have like pipelines, of contracts. And when COVID hit, my largest contract was about to be recompeted, which was really, scary because, you don't know how those things are going to turn out. So I did go ahead and take I think they call it the first round PPP loans, just so I could, give my employees some assurances that, with the uncertainty of the contract environment combined with the uncertainty of COVID, that, we would have some time to pivot and adapt if we needed to. I think that the process, I felt like it worked pretty well, so it may not have for everybody, but I did have an existing relationship with a bank. So that helped a lot.
To recap, what you just said is resources exist. you should really have had a relationship with your partner bank before you needed the money. So if you don't have a healthy banking relationship, get it going. But I'll also like to say, ladies, I'll ask you a closing question. So start thinking about your answer. Where are you today? What are your closing thoughts? But as you're thinking of your answers, I'll give some free resources to the viewers. The American Rescue Act is law now. There is tons of money coming down the pike in health, in housing, in additional resources, where you as a business owner, you as a foundation, you as a nonprofit should be able to access additional dollars to do the work that we're doing. So don't do without these resources, because the American government, the American foundations, philanthropies, they want to help us, but if we're not applying and using it, then we don't count, and it makes it tough for us to get monies when they're available. So I'm going to go back to Janice here, so you can help us close out. Let's be brief, because I want to make sure we have time for Q&As. Give us a closing thought, and then we'll go to Sila and then Celi. Dale.
I tend to be a futuristic thinker, so I like to strategize. And so to me, this time was not just about surviving, some of the difficulties around COVID, but also about looking at what's ahead. So for my business, I used the time to get a GSA schedule. I actually had that awarded since COVID has started. So I can now work directly with the government. And I also used the time to really begin getting all of my business certifications. And
Love it.
so, I think that is very important too.
No, that's a perfect segue to Celi. This is our bread and butter. So thank you, Janice, very much. Dale, Celi.
Awesome. So yeah, so for the future, I'm a positive person as well. So interesting enough, during COVID, a whole new industry opened up for me, which is construction. So I opened the Latino Construction Contractor Academy. So I'm working with Latinas who want to go into construction. It's such a big demand right now because construction never it never stopped. And so for me, I'm building, additional capabilities and expanding, like I said, nationally. What I do locally, I can do nationally. So my vision is to go national. Social media, Zoom help me out. So, it's all about growing and expanding and reaching out other Latinas. So a lot of times, because we're in this federal space and we're in government, environment, all this terminology, government consulting, minority certifications is very kind of natural to us, but there's so many Latinas out there that need to get certified, need to get into government contracting. So we can do so much to educate our community and make them part of this, this larger network of contractors.
My mind is spinning. You guys are inspiring me.
Yeah.
Sila, go ahead and close this out real briefly, please.
Okay. Well, for ICTM, I have a short-term goal and a long-term goal, but I do not, I'm very aware, I'm very open to unexpected opportunities, things that I didn't think. And all of a sudden I said, I can do that. So, and again, it's great to have short-term, long-term, but also unexpected opportunities available. So don't let them go. Don't think that you cannot do it. Don't think that you're doing too much. You can always hire somebody else.
That's right.
To do for you what you either don't want to do it or don't know how to do it.
Beautiful.
And those are business opportunities that are open, and we should grab them.
See, I just feel like I'm going to go run out here and make more money because of you girls are just, me están prendiendo el fuego. But I want to transition. I want to take some Q&As from you guys. Tell us what you're thinking. Put it on the Q&A section or on the comments. What questions can we answer for you, either as an established entrepreneur, as one that's envisioning, a potential entrepreneurial venture. Share your comments. We want to answer questions. I'm looking to see what we have, and maybe Deanna, you guys at Latina Style can help us. But if you have any questions, chime in. One thing I'll expand on while we're waiting for the questions to be sorted is, Janice said this, it's never said enough, planning. Time to plan, time to think, time to strategize. I actually do something in my company called time blocking. I actually block time to work and to think. And one of the things that's really, really important is if you're not thinking about that, you're missing opportunities. I actually think. So book an hour a week. You know, back to Valeria. Valeria, you're my new BFF, man. I love all your posts, but I go ahead and give time for me to just have a mental sabbatical. I do float therapy. If you haven't done that in terms of self-care, an hour of sense deprivation to get in my head and start thinking about big, blow my mind concepts. So make sure that you're thinking, if I call Sally about this Latina Construction Academy, could I partner her with this client? Could we create content and sell it? How much could we sell it for? So start thinking, start thinking, start thinking. I love driving and thinking, the flotation, but it is strategic thinking time. I'm seeing all your comments, guys, very disciplined, but it is a commitment. Just like you wouldn't blow off a client meeting, we tend to abuse ourselves and go, I know, Joe, I'll just do that, but not this. This is just as important. It goes back to working on the business, not in the business. If we don't do that time, no, vamos a quedar chiquitas, we'll remain small. So let me see. I don't know that we have any questions because my panelists was pretty awesome. They filled us with a lot of inspiration and hope. So what I like to do is remind you guys that we do have an award ceremony. We're gonna celebrate our successes. We rarely do that. We're moving at the speed of light, doing the next thing. I'm at fault of doing that. I keep moving too fast and I don't savor the successes. We're incredibly accomplished. We're walking rock stars. So please remain on, enjoy the award ceremony. Let's celebrate one another for the little wins. Again, Valeria, the micro steps, the big wins, the big contracts. But I want to take this time to thank my stellar panel. You guys make this super easy. So Celia Argueta, Sila Alegret. I never know how to say your name, Sila, so I'm going to butcher it. Give me a second. I want to say it right. No, me corría. Sila Alegret Bartel and Janice Garcia Keating. You guys were fantastic. I continue to count on you as motivational sisters so that we can keep getting bigger and bigger. And the last thing I'll leave you guys all with is we are so much more powerful as a collective sum. So when the opportunity surfaces for money, for opportunities, for contracts, for mentor partnership opportunities, call on one another. Call on one another. I never bring someone in as a favor. That's not fair. Every single project I work on has a budget to it because we are worth so much more. So if we don't put $1 next to our worth when we go pitch it, then American mainstream bigger organizations think we continue to volunteer. So partner strategically. I have some notes as you guys were talking. I'm going to follow up with you all because there are opportunities from my end where we can work together to keep growing sustainably and profitably. So to Latina Style Magazine, to my fellow panels, thank you for having us. This was a treat. Un abrazo y mil gracias.
Bye, everybody.